see that we are successful. We will see that Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea.
Australia's controversial and unelected e-safety commissioner has struck again, this time targeting a website dedicated to fighting Jew hatred online and exposing the extremists living amongst us.
I mean, my website is basically a website promoting Jewish people, fighting anti-Semitism, trying to actually reach beyond the traditional echo chamber and do things a little bit differently. Especially after the Bankstown nurse incident, I decided to shift my focus towards medical professionals because, as far as I'm concerned, that is just unforgivable. And not just unforgivable, it potentially poses a danger to Jewish patients and also non-Jewish Zionist patients. So in my investigations, I found one Dr. Akil Islam who lives in Queensland. And when I looked at his own social media postings on LinkedIn, in other words, this isn't someone anonymous, using an anonymous name. He's on a professional website, social networking site, as a doctor, as Dr. Islam. And he was reposting the most vile things. And when I say vile things, I'm not the sort of person that looks at someone who hates Israel and says, you know what, I'm going to cancel them. I'm not into that. Vile things are when you post things which are beyond just hatred of Israel or hatred of Australia or of the West. We're talking about actual anti-Semitism and terror support. And I'm sure the average person out there would agree that when you go to a doctor, if that doctor supports the murder of innocent people, you're probably not going to feel that safe around them.
I'm genuinely appreciative of your efforts, mate. So what unfolded after you uncovered this doctor in Australia who's openly displaying flagrant anti-Semitism and publicly endorsing terrorism?
So I wake up in the morning here in Israel. I look at my email as part of my morning routine, and I see this e-safety commissioner email. And at first, it had an attachment, and I get a lot of dodgy emails with attachments, probably from the other side trying to in phishing attempts to get my passwords and the like, because they do that. But it did look legit. So I opened it up and I'm absolutely, I'd like to say really angry, but to be honest, Ivy, I didn't even know what the hell was going on. The whole way that this was written was actually very confusing to me. For instance, we're talking about the e-safety commissioner and they're notifying me for some Instagram post, but then there's a link to an article on my website and there's absolutely no Instagram post. So I'm thinking, what's going on here? And they're talking about cyber abuse. And then when I realized what they deemed to be cyber abuse, I was absolutely perplexed because from my point of view, what I was doing was exposing actual cyber abuse. I wasn't abusing anyone. I certainly wasn't encouraging anyone to abuse anyone. I was simply providing factual evidence in the terms of screenshots and a video as well, and asking people to report to the doctor. Isn't that the way you're supposed to do things when you find a doctor doing things which are very worrying and potentially endangering patients? So for me, it was just mind-blowing.
Absolutely. The Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency is precisely who concerned Aussies are supposed to turn to when reporting questionable doctors. Yet it almost seems as though the e-safety commissioner was more troubled by your journalism than by the doctor's dangerous behaviour.
It's exactly that. It's not almost as if it's like that. That's exactly what is going on here. What was offensive to them was the fact that I was exposing that he's a Hamas supporter and an anti-Semite. One of the grounds for finding that I was engaged in cyberbullying, it was that they said that the average Australian adult would regard the material as being offensive because it suggests that he, the doctor, is involved in the support of a terrorist group, something that an ordinary reasonable person would find to offend their standards of morality, decency, and propriety. Make that make sense? That me exposing the offensive material is the cyberbullying and not the actual offensive material itself. I've always been very meticulous when it comes to fighting back legally, never engaging in inciting of violence or anything of the kind. It's always working within the law. And, the law, there's a health agency in Australia for reporting cases of potential medical misconduct. So if I cannot use legal avenues, or people can't use legal avenues, then how can we legally fight back against this? Do we just have to lie down and, accept that there are doctors out there that could potentially harm patients? I think not.
I don't believe we should tolerate it. And once again, I'm grateful for you for refusing to let it slide. But something else that struck me as particular is that, unlike you or me, the individual who sent you that letter didn't sign off their name to it. It makes me wonder if they're hiding their identity, because if we knew who they were, it might become glaringly apparent that they sympathise with the doctor's hateful stance. What's your take on it?
There is something that makes me think it's a possibility. Well, because it's such a bizarre sort of case against me, as it were,
Sure.
that they're ignoring the actual cyberbullying of Dr. Islam, but, categorizing me exposing his cyberbullying as cyberbullying itself. That's the first sort of thing that gets my spidey senses tingling. But there was also something interesting in the wording, because one of the things, one of the, let's say, reasonings that they used was that, maybe my post would cause serious harm to Dr. Islam. Okay, they're worried that it would somehow instigate violence, even though I'm not the one supporting a terrorist organization and the murder of men, women, and children. But then they said, because a lot of, I should know that my followers are likely to hold anti-Palestine views. Now, that was very interesting. I kind of got onto that wording, that turn of phrase, because just because I defend the Jewish people and I oppose terrorism, anti-Semitism, and anti-Western sentiment, how does that equate to anti-Palestinian views? I'm not anti-Palestinian per se, and my followers certainly cannot be generalized as being anti-Palestinian. So it just sort of seems to me to be a very kind of subjective, judgmental kind of wording. So in addition to the fact that the conclusion is absolute garbage and odd, that kind of wording makes me feel that their anonymity might not be an accident.
It's a chilling notion that the very entity tasked with ensuring online safety might have been infiltrated by individuals harbouring anti-Semitic views or even sympathies for Hamas.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the point, Avi. Where do we go? Where do we turn? If the people in positions of power hold the same vile views as those who we are fighting against, then where do we turn?
Once again, David, you've hit the nail on the head, which is precisely why I posed 8 straightforward questions to the e-Safety Commissioner, asking whether they classify exposing extremist views held by frontline medical professionals as cyber abuse, or if they deem it inappropriate for concerned citizens to report Dr. Islam to APRA, or even if they find any of Dr. Islam's posts disturbing. I also asked if they think Jewish patients would feel secure under the care of a doctor espousing such views. I want to know what specific outcome the Safety Commissioner hopes to achieve with this notification, because it's not clear in the letter. And given ASIO's recent warning that escalating intolerant rhetoric poses a serious threat to national security, how can they then justify defending Dr. Islam's statements? And how they think Australian Jews can retain confidence in them if they're protecting individuals who voice anti-Semitic or terror-supporting sentiments. And lastly, whether their stance diverges from the Australian Senate, which voted, by the way, 56-12 to denounce From the River to the Sea as a hateful slogan.
Absolutely. Now, From the River to the Sea, I obviously agree that that's a genocidal chant, but it's important to mention that that wasn't all that I exposed. I mean, we're talking about calling Hamas terrorism resistance. One of the posts that he amplified even had the red inverted Hamas triangle, which, as you know, is sort of indicative of the Palestinian cause these days, but actually signifies like the targeting of Israelis. That's what Hamas used it for, and it's been co-opted by their supporters. So that in itself is very worrying. And he called them resistance fighters. I mean, you look at the actual post, it goes well beyond an interpretation of From the River to the Sea, which some people say isn't genocidal. So it isn't about my interpretation. It's about unequivocal support of terrorism. And I included video of him at one of the rallies. And in that footage, and he was up there speaking to the audience, he acknowledged how medical colleagues might see his actions here as inappropriate. And then he was trying to shame his medical colleagues for not speaking out.
My medical colleagues may say, what business is there in speaking upon what is a political issue or a controversial issue or what is divisive. To them I say this: is it not true that the life expectancy of our First Nations brothers and sisters is undisputedly rooted in the deep impact of British colonial settlement across generations? Is this not true?
So even Dr. Islam knows on some level that what he's doing, might raise some eyebrows, and, people might look at that as worrying.
Dr. Islam was fully aware of the impact of his public hate-filled post. And as that video revealed, and I think it's important for people to know, that his venom isn't aimed solely at Israel and Jews, but extends to Australia itself. To him, anyone outside his hateful circle is branded a colonial settler. And when someone dares to call it out like you, his mob can count on the eSafety Commissioner to swoop in as their shield. It's utterly shameful. You can find the eSafety Commissioner's full response on the Rebel News website, but to sum it up for you, it's a convoluted word salad that sidesteps most of my pointed questions, hiding behind vague claims of privacy to dodge accountability. And if they think they can brush it off that easily, they're sorely mistaken. We've unleashed our legal team to demand clearer answers on David's behalf, something their flimsy privacy excuse won't shield them from. I'll keep you in the loop as this unfolds. But I also fired off the same 8 questions to both the Communications Minister and the opposition. Predictably, Labor Minister Michelle Rowland gave me the silent treatment, while opposition MP Melissa McIntosh offered me a bland response stating, "Everyone has the right to feel safe online. The coalition condemns all forms of abuse online." Sorry, folks. That's not even close to good enough. And if you're serious about taking back this country, you need to step up and fast. If you think David's story is as important as I do, make sure to like, comment, but most importantly, share it far and wide, because I guarantee you the mainstream media won't touch it. They're either too scared of the e-safety overlords or too cozy with their agenda. And then make sure to head over to sackeKaren.com and demand this wannabe tyrant's job. sackeKaren.com, sign and share the petition.